Hello, everybody. Happy Friday afternoon. Hope yours is going well. We've got another Seahawks video to get to today, but first I want to give a shout out to all the subscribers, and special tip of the cap goes to the channel members, especially the elite channel members, Brendon, Mikel, Hasher for MVP, VGK Tigers 75, Rye Guy, Salacious Crumb, Brendan Nelson's Haircut, TVO, It's Hoof, The Reno, and 12th Man. All right. Now we get to the really exciting stuff because I spent some time taking a look at this particular position in the draft. I spent some time evaluating the talent. I compared it to the kinds of players that I know this team likes. I compared it to the kinds of players I know Pete Carroll likes. And I have to say, this draft is absolutely loaded at the cornerback position for the Seattle Seahawks. So these videos, actually, these next three videos, counting this one, will be a lot more optimistic and a lot more broad than the last three, where I discussed the paltry number of centers that I was actually intrigued by. So we're going to have a lot of players to look at today, but first, let's look at the kinds of cornerbacks that we like, because obviously anybody can find a good cornerback in the draft. There are a ton of them. This is a great draft for cornerbacks, but it's not enough to just be a good cornerback. You have to be good at the kinds of things that Pete Carroll is going to be prioritizing and valuing, because he's going to be in charge of this defense for at least a couple more years, pretty much no matter what happens. So with that in mind, let's keep a few things in mind when we're trying to find good cornerbacks. So the Seahawks are, as far as I can tell, they're fine at the nickel cornerback position. We have Ahmadi, we have Blair, DJ Reed can play nickel corner if he needs to, so can Quandre Diggs, Demarius Randall can do it, so we're fine at nickel. So any drafted cornerback needs to be able to play outside, and with the exception of DJ Reed, we clearly have a type of cornerback who we'd like to line up outside. Now, this is pretty universal, but outside cornerbacks are typically at least 6 feet tall. Carroll seems to prioritize it even more than some other coaches. And he also likes players to have very long arms. He likes wingspan, and he likes players who are lanky. So that has to be kept in mind as we evaluate these players. Just to hammer that point home, I took a look at some of the cornerbacks that Carroll drafted and or had success with during his time in Seattle. I left a few off here, actually. You could go a little further than I did, but Richard Sherman was 6'3". His wingspan is 78 inches. Maxwell 6'1", 77.5 inches. Browner 6'4", 80 inches. Harold Simon, I know it didn't really work out, but he was 6'2" with an 80-inch wingspan. Ty Smith was 6 feet tall with a 78-inch wingspan. Trey Flowers, 6'3", with a 79.5-inch wingspan. The only guy that Carroll ever drafted high and had decent success with who didn't fit this mold was Shaq Griffin. Shaq Griffin's wingspan was 74 inches. But other than that, Carroll clearly has a type at cornerback, and I would expect him to hold true to that type if he decides to select a corner in this draft. So, we like players who are tall, at least 6 feet tall, and we like players who have a wingspan of at least 77.5 inches, I would say. All right, let's go down the list, and we're going to start once again with the players who are likely to go in the second or third round of the draft who the Seahawks could get. So let's go to prospect number 1, Eric Stokes of Georgia. And this is the dream for me. This guy, if we can get him, if we can get Eric Stokes, that has me through the roof. That has me over the moon. This would be one of the prospects that I would not want to trade out of. If we get to pick 56 and Eric Stokes is there somehow, which I think is becoming less likely by the day, you have to take him. I'm starting to come around to the idea of trading back to get more picks. If Eric Stokes is there, just do it. All right, he's 22 years old, relatively young, played for the Georgia Bulldogs, and let me just say, those Georgia Bulldogs, that secondary was loaded last couple years actually. Loaded. He's 6'1", 185 pounds. He's got a 78-inch wingspan, so he passes both of those initial benchmarks. His 40 time was freaky, 4.25. He is one of the fastest players in this draft class. And measurable wise, he is a dream. He is everything you could want from a corner in general and a Pete Carroll corner. As for his numbers, in 2018, his first year, only 20 tackles, but 9 pass deflections. 2019, 38 tackles, 30 of them were solo, 9 pass deflections again, 1 sack, and 1 forced fumble. 2020 was kind of his breakout year in terms of being a playmaker. 20 tackles, 14 solo, 4 pass deflections, but 4 interceptions, including 2 he took back to the house. So he showed all kinds of different stuff statistically at the college level. Now, I confess that Eric Stokes is probably going to be a late riser and is thus likely to be picked before the Seahawks select. However, as of this moment, it seems entirely feasible he's there at 56 overall. Pro Football Network, Tankathon, and the Draft Network all think he's going to be a high to mid second rounder. ESPN thinks he's going to be a late second rounder, however. Walter Football thinks he'll be either the second or the third. Sporting News has him as a high third, and so does Pro Football Focus. So there is the outside possibility that Eric Stokes falls to us at 56, and he would be one of the guys who, if he's there, I would just take it. I would just take him. Don't trade back. Don't mess around. Just take this guy. He developed ball hawk skills as a junior, as I showed. He became an interception machine in 2020. 4 picks. He can play multiple different styles and schemes. He showed the ability to play press man, press zone, cover 3, cover 1. He can play in all different types of systems. He can be physical. He can be a drop back corner. He's a great all-around talent. However, current fit is very clearly as an outside cornerback in a zone-based scheme so he can use his ball skills. So basically, if you put this guy as an outside corner in a zone scheme, which is what I would want to do with him in Seattle, he's going to make a lot of plays on the ball, and that's very, very tantalizing. And obviously, he's freakishly fast, and he's a great athlete. So there's a lot to like about Eric Stokes. He does need to learn how to use those traits better. He was faster running his 40 time than he was running on the field. And that's not exactly surprising, obviously, but he needs to learn how to use his speed on a football field a little better than he is right now. So that's something that will come with time, you would hope. And he does have some technique issues that need to be cleaned up. But, watching this guy play, he can do it all. And I'll say it again. If he's there at 56 somehow, don't trade back. Don't get more picks. Just take this guy. That's how good he is. All right. Moving on to prospect number 2, and I like this guy a lot as well. Ifeatu Melifonwu. I think I got that right. Ifeatu Melifonwu, 22 years old from Syracuse. And this guy is the other guy who I would strongly consider taking if he's there at 56. If he's there, I know trading back makes all the sense in the world, and a lot of people will still want to do it, but if he's there, just go. He's 6'2", so he's long. He's 212 pounds, so he's actually got some real girth to him. Wingspan is 78.5 inches, solid. He's not got the best 40 time, but that gives him something in common with a lot of Seahawks corners who have been drafted in recent years. Well, when I say recent, the Pete Carroll era. So I don't think that's a deal breaker at all. As for his stats, 2018, 14 tackles, all of them solo, 6 PDs. 2019, 20 tackles, 16 solo, 7 PDs, 2 picks. 2019, 55 tackles, probably his best season yet in terms of general involvement. 42 solo, 8 pass deflections, 1 sack, and 1 interception. Most of the experts think he's going to be a late second-round pick, maybe a mid-second-round pick, but a lot of people think he's going to be in the approximate area of the Seahawks pick, so I think there's a good chance he'll be there. Pro Football Focus and Walter Football are a little less high. They think he'll be a third-round pick, maybe even a fourth. And Pro Football Network really isn't high on him. They have him as a sixth-round pick right now, so there is a little bit of flexibility in there, but I think he's probably going to be a low second to high third pick. His combination of length and size and athleticism makes him a perfect fit for a Carroll secondary at outside corner. So right off the bat, you can look at this guy and say, yeah, this is a Seahawk type corner. This guy uses his length to disturb the ball at the point of catch. He knows how to use his length to disrupt opposing wide receivers. He'll be a great fit for his own scheme, which is obviously what we need. I was watching some tape of this guy going up against Dyami Brown when they were playing North Carolina, and he really held his own. And you guys know how much I like Dyami Brown. He's got great ball skills and reading ability. He made a lot of plays on the ball during his career at Stanford. He's a good tackler and a good run defender. He's somebody who's not afraid to get in there and make a tough tackle, much like Richard Sherman before him, much like Brandon Browner before him, or even Shaq Griffin. So that's something that we value here in Seattle, and he has it. So that's all very good. He should be good in press man as well if you take a look at his physical attributes. If that ever became an issue, which in this defense doesn't happen that often, but he should be great in a zone scheme, and he also should be effective in press man. He has great potential to be somebody who breaks up a lot of passes once he develops. The only real hole in his game is that he needs to learn how to anticipate a little bit better, which is why he only had 3 interceptions in college despite getting his hand on a lot of passes. So there's a little bit to develop there, but once again, if this guy is available at 56, I think you just have to close your eyes and take it. I know you want to trade back. I know you want to get more picks. Just do it. This guy is perfect for Carroll's defense. So those are my top 2. Those are the 2 guys who would really excite me. The next 3 guys are really good too, but these are 3 guys I think I would be a little more willing to take in the 3rd round after a trade back. So with that in mind, let's take a look at prospect number 3. Tyson Campbell, again, of Georgia. Remember what I told you about that Georgia secondary. They were good, and Tyson Campbell would be my 3rd prospect to draft in the first 3 rounds. 21 years old, so he's actually a little younger than the above 2 guys. 6'2", 185 pounds. He's got the body type. The only issue, the only hole in this resume, and the thing that made me bump Tyson Campbell down from a 2nd rounder to a 3rd rounder for me, is the fact that his wingspan is not great. 75.5 inches. That is a couple of inches below what Carroll, I think, wants as his minimum. And I know 2 inches doesn't seem like a big deal, but I think that it is to Carroll. His 40 time was excellent, 4.3840, so he's got the speed to go with his length. So yeah, it's really just this wingspan that is kind of giving me pause. 2018, he had 45 tackles, 1 pass deflection, 1 forced fumble. 2019, 15 tackles, 9 solo, 4 pass deflections. 2020, 26 tackles, 4 pass deflections, and 1 pick. So right away, you can kind of see the other issue with Tyson Campbell. He didn't make a lot of plays on the ball in his college career. He played 3 seasons and had 9 pass deflections and 1 pick. So he doesn't have great ball skills yet. So he's not necessarily somebody who's going to do a great job of taking the ball away, at least right away. However, the talent makes him a potential late 2nd round pick. Walter Football even thinks he could be a fringe 1st. But PFN thinks he'll be a mid 2nd rounder. Tankathon and ESPN think he'll be a late 2nd rounder in our range to pick, basically. Pro Football Focus and Sporting News think he'll be a 3rd rounder. Draft Network thinks he'll be a fringe 3rd to 4th rounder. So it's a little all over the place, but I expect him to be kind of like Ifeatu. He'll go somewhere around the late 2nd or early 3rd. He's a very good athlete. He's got great agility and great quickness. So in terms of the physical gifts you are looking for in a cornerback, he's really got it all. He's got the length and the frame to match up with what NFL scouts currently covet in cornerbacks. I already said, his wingspan is definitely underwhelming, but his height kind of gives him those attributes that current scouts like anyway. Once he moves to more of a zone cornerback, if he moves to a zone, he will probably become more of a playmaker. Because one thing I already pointed out was he didn't make a lot of plays on the ball in college. But if he plays in a zone scheme, because of his natural talent, he will probably become more of a playmaker. So that's one thing that needs to be considered when you're evaluating him. If he comes to Seattle, he will probably become more of a playmaker. He did get injured a little bit at Georgia. He got injured, I think, twice. So there are some concerns there. And he did have some situational awareness lapses, which you might expect from somebody so young, only 21. So this is another very good prospect. No longer one of my favorites, but I think we could trade back to the early 3rd round, pick this guy, and I would be really happy. I think you could develop him. I just wish his arms were a little longer, but despite that, I still think there's really something here. All right, now let's go to prospect number 4 that I would consider using a third round pick on. Or yeah, for Shaun Wade of Ohio State. And this one's kind of interesting. So let's take a look at Shaun Wade and we'll go through the positives and the negatives. He's got the size, he's 6'1, 194 pounds. He's got the wingspan, 78 inches. I couldn't find his 40 time anywhere, which is weird because he went to Ohio friggin' State, but couldn't find it. He's 22 years old, so he's not, age is not a thing for him at all. If you take a look at his stats, you'll see some stuff that is really promising. 31 tackles as a freshman, 27 solo, 7 PDs, 1 forced fumble, and 3 picks. 2019, 25 tackles, 16 of them solo, 8 pass deflections, 2 sacks, a forced fumble, and a pick. In 2020, he had 20 tackles, 14 solo, 3 pass deflections, 2 picks, and 1 touchdown on one of those picks. So he had a pretty phenomenal career in terms of stats at Ohio State. And because of that, people think he's going to get drafted pretty high. At one point, Shaun Wade was expected to be a first round pick. I think the shine really came off the apple in that regard. I no longer think he'll be a first round pick, and nobody really seems to. Sporting News, PFN, Tankathon all think he'll be a third rounder. Walter Football thinks he'll be a third or fourth rounder. ESPN says fourth rounder. Pro Football Focus thinks he'll be a fringe fourth rounder, maybe a fifth. And the Draft Network thinks he'll be a fifth rounder. So probably going to go somewhere around the late third, maybe mid third if I had to guess, just because of his pedigree. But yeah, he was going to be a first round pick at one point, I think. So let's take a look at some of the notes. He was a star at the nickel cornerback position as a freshman. So 2018, which was probably his best overall season, he was playing nickel corner. Let's keep that in mind going forward. Now, he has the physical attributes. I want to repeat that. The physical attributes to fit right in as an outside corner in the Seahawks defense. He's got the size, he's got the wingspan, he's got the talent. He can play that role in theory. He's also a great tackler. He's great in run defense. He showed many times at Ohio State that he was more than willing to go make tough tackles in the open space. So that stuff's all good. However, this is the red flag with Shaun Wade. He struggled at Ohio State when moved outside, raising questions about where he might play in the NFL. Once he moved out of the nickel cornerback position later in his career, he was not nearly as much of a playmaker, not nearly as effective of a player. So, despite the fact that he has the size to play outside, you have to wonder if he actually will be able to. So, if you get Shaun Wade, that is a true test of Carroll's ability to get a talented player who is not currently ready to do what we need him to do and then develop him. To add on to my list of concerns, there is a lot of buzz that Shaun Wade might be a safety in the NFL. And by safety, I kind of mean he plays positionless, where he goes on the field, but sometimes he lines up at safety, sometimes he lines up at linebacker, sometimes at corner, nickel corner, outside corner. He just lines up all over the place. He might be that kind of player. And while that kind of stuff is great, it's not exactly what we're looking for. So Shaun Wade is on the list as a valid third round pick, but I'm no longer in love with the idea of getting him to fit into this defense. All right, fifth and final prospect today, and this was a real buffet of cornerback talent. And this last guy we're going to take a look at is no exception. This is Kelvin Joseph from Kentucky. All right, so this guy has the attributes to fit in with Carroll. He's 6'1", 191 pounds, 77-inch wingspan, which is it's pushing it, but I think it's good enough. Byron Maxwell, no, not. Yeah, I think it was Byron Maxwell had a 77.5-inch wingspan, and he fit in fine in Seattle. So 77 inches should be fine. He had a great 40 time, 4.3440. The issue with him is a lack of experience. So he's pure potential, but didn't have a lot of production in college. 12 tackles and 1 PD in 2018. He missed 2019. 2020, he had 25 tackles, 1 PD, but 4 picks and 1 touchdown. So he did flash a lot of stuff in 2020 in terms of being able to take the ball away. But other than that, it's a very short resume. As for where he might get drafted, Pro Football Network loves him. They think he'll go in the early second. ESPN thinks he's a mid-second. Walter Football thinks he has an outside chance at being a first-round pick, but they think he's probably going to be a first to a third. Tankathon has him as a third rounder. Pro Football Focus has him as a mid-third. Draft Network has him as a fourth rounder. Sporting News does not have him ranked at all. So they think he's going to be a fourth rounder at best, supposedly, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, he's got good length. He's probably going to be an outside corner in the NFL. Whether it's here or somewhere else, that's where he fits in. He's 6'1", 77-inch wingspan. That's outside corner stuff. He was very versatile on the Kentucky defense, however. He lined up at safety. He lined up at nickel corner. He lined up at outside corner. He did a lot of different stuff for that defense. And just because he fits in best as an outside corner doesn't change the fact that he may be able to do other things at the NFL level. He's got good ball skills, which is clearly shown by his ability to take the football away. Despite limited action last year in the COVID season, he had 4 interceptions on, you know, not 25 tackles over the course of a season is not very high, so that should give you an idea of how often this guy was taking the ball away on a per snap basis. He's got a lack of experience, so that means he's not going to be good out of the box in the NFL in all likelihood. He's probably going to be a developmental project. He's going to make a lot of mistakes at first. He's only 20 years old, which actually is another thing that draws me to him, but you better be ready for those mistakes in year 1 and maybe even year 2. He needs to work on his technique and the cerebral side of playing cornerback, I think, but that's what you would expect from a guy who's played so little in his career and done so little, relatively speaking. And yeah, Kelvin Joseph is a guy who I would not really want to take until the 3rd round, but if you trade back and get 2 third-round picks and make Kelvin Joseph one of your third-round picks, I'm going to be pretty happy with that. So those are the 5 top 100 cornerback prospects I would take. These are 5 guys who I expect to go in the 2nd or 3rd round of the draft. And if the Seahawks have the opportunity to take one of them, I think they need to strongly consider it at the very least. So what do you guys think? Who do you like? Who do you dislike? Is there somebody I missed? Is there somebody here you really don't want to draft? Is there somebody who you think could be a late climber and become a 2nd or 3rd round pick at the corner position the Seahawks might covet? Let me know. Let me know. This is a collaborative effort, but this is what I found after doing some research. I like all 5 of these guys. I like their tape. I think they all are going to be good pros probably, but who is the best fit for the Seahawks? Who's going to be the best? All right. Peace out, Go Hawks. See you guys in stream later. Tomorrow we'll take a look at the late round corners who I like. There are a lot of those as well, but for now, think about these guys. Peace out, Go Hawks.